Welcome to the Late Night Race Review. Max takes 17 laps to gain the lead. Has his career already peaked? Oh yeah, he also won again. Did McLaren Rocketships run out of fuel? And Ferrari get P3. Can you believe it? It's the Belgian GP. Don't forget to support the podcast by hitting those like, follow and subscribe buttons.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Late Night Race Review. I'm Dave Jericho, taking over the hot seat again from Scotty, as once again, he's decided not to join us. But as always, the trusty companion, Isidro Gonçalves, is here as always. Thanks for joining me, Isidro, as Scotty can't be bothered. But right, this weekend we had an interesting one. We had the Belgian Grand Prix, and we had we're like a broken record here, but Max Verstappen, Red Bull, dominant weekend, pole position, excluding obviously his five place grid penalty for the gearbox change, sprint race win, feature race win. I mean, he's just, I mean, we say it every week, he's unstoppable. I mean, what else can we say? Like, I mean, do you think anyone's going to challenge him this year between now and the end of the season?
No, I don't think so. And that's why I think Red Bull should start replacing the gearbox every single race until the end of the season. So at least there's some excitement to see Verstappen having to go through just a few drivers to get first, even if it takes 17 laps like he did today. That's terrible. Max, you should know better. Step up, please.
Or Lewis should be sneaking into the Red Bull garage with a screwdriver and just jiggling some things around there in the engine. But like, did you find though as well, like on his radio calls, he was very argumentative with his race engineer and stuff like that, which, I mean, we always say is a good thing when we hear the likes of sort of the Ferrari drivers maybe not doing it enough, questioning their race engineer. But I think today especially, it almost came with its sort of a sense of like arrogance, bit of cockiness about him. And that can be great in a race car driver, but should he be also a little bit more humble in the position that he's in?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, Red Bull mechanics have been doing a great job, and they know what they're doing. Unlike Ferrari, that usually they need to ask a few times what they want to do. Red Bull guys, they know precisely what needs to be done to get the race. So I don't think Verstappen has many reasons to complain, if at all.
Yeah, go on, yeah.
It's not his fault, the gearbox, but that didn't cost him anything. He still won, and if anything, made the race better.
Yeah, just and as well as like I just thought some of the like the radio call where he said about he had two radio calls, I think it was. So one, they were sort of telling him not to be sort of burning up the tires. I think it was on the final stint, and he said that. He was saying that basically he could push more to basically extend his lead to Perez in second and come in for a pit stop at the end. And you obviously the race engineer and the pit wall said no, not this time, obviously referring to when he did that previously. But then he was sort of saying, about the, come in for a bit of pit stop training. And I know that was a joke to to the pit wall. But it almost made a bit of a mockery of the rest of the drive. It almost came across like it was total arrogance in the sense that I am so good. You guys are so far behind me that I can just joke around about, do I want to stretch another 10 seconds so I can get a free pit stop? I can do it if I want. I don't know. And like the fact that you can do that is great. And I think like he's an incredible driver, and it goes to show, and we'll get on to Perez and the sort of the contrast between the two of them. But so he's an incredible driver, and it's great to see. But I think you need to, and I like a bit of cockiness in a driver. I like a bit of self-assurance and stuff like that. But as well as that, you got to check yourself sometimes, because like Formula One is very ruthless, and this can all come crashing down pretty quick. And also, it may not happen until the next regulation change, but you never know. The next regulation change could see Red Bull turn into a McLaren. or into a Williams, where Williams used to be fighting at the front, and then the hybrid era came in, and Williams just suddenly dropped to the back of the pack. It's very easy for something like that to happen. Okay, not necessarily saying that will happen to Red Bull, but be a bit humble and don't be a dick, I think, on the radio.
Especially everyone can listen. And it was almost he didn't crash, but he lost control for a second
in Eau Rouge. Yeah.
So I mean that was that was enough to ruin the race for him in that moment. So maybe focus more on the drive and less on the unnecessary complaints.
Yeah, exactly. Or the sort of the showboating as well, like, because that's what it comes out. It comes out showboating, and just leaves a sour taste. But anyway, Perez, P2 today, which I suppose in hindsight is a great result given his previous results. He got obviously he had a DNF in the sprint race. I think that came after that was due to the collision with Hamilton, wasn't it?
Hamilton.
Yeah. Where did he qualify actually? So I'm not 100% sure where he qualified P2.
P2.
P3 because and then after Verstappen's 5-second penalty, then he went up to P2, wasn't it? Let me just double check that.
He did P3 on the qualifying.
Yeah.
But the starting grid was P2.
So I mean that in itself is an improvement, because that has been where Perez's downfall has been. It's been in the qualifying where he's then having to do a recovery drive. So P3, started P2, finished P2. But how good of a result is that? Now, P2 is a positive result for anybody, but keeping in mind he finished 22 seconds behind his teammate in the same machinery. Putting all that in context, how good of a result was this for Perez? In terms, now keeping in mind that his career is at Red Bull is maybe on a little bit of a delicate balance at the moment, given his recent performances. How good is P2 22 seconds behind your teammate?
I think it's the best he could do today. Even though it's 22 seconds, Verstappen is much more confident in that car than Perez is on his Red Bull. And I think that reflects on the track as well.
So, like, Helmut Marko came out. I'm not 100% sure when these comments came out, but he was sort of saying about, sort of that Perez is getting a bit of a snap of reality now. And I think there was like the quote from him was something about him waking up from his championship title challenging dream. Because it was actually straight after the race, wasn't it? Because he was referring to him finishing 22 seconds behind Max. That's why I said how good is that P2 for him, because it says to me that the team and when we had, and I know it's rumor mill, but when we hear the names of Lando Norris and Leclerc and stuff like that, sort of in the rumor mill for 2026 joining Red Bull, are we thinking that the Red Bull team are kind of getting increasingly frustrated that he is so far behind Max, and they would rather see two cars dominate, not one car dominate and the other car kind of, struggling to keep the P2 position from P3?
In that sense, he should, considering it's the same car, he should be slightly not as far as behind as he was today.
Yeah.
But overall, I don't think he was expecting to be finishing first this weekend.
But what,
and overall, the P2 is the best.
But you say that. Sorry to cut across you, but when you said there, like, he wasn't probably expecting to finish, to win the race or anything like that. But that's probably a mindset thing. He should have been expecting to win the race. He should have been he is a really, given the current form, put the current form aside, because it seems to be a big confidence knock that he's taking. But he's an excellent driver. He's an excellent machinery. He started P2. He should have been thinking, I'm winning this race. He should have gone out with that confidence. There's no reason why I can't win this race. But 22 seconds, what the?
Yeah, 22 seconds, it's a lot. But considering where Perez has been driving in the fighting in the middle of the pack, barely making the podium, I think P2 today was a good victory for him. And I don't think if I don't think Red Bull would see Paris first and let Verstappen be second today. I think they want Verstappen to win the championship as soon as possible.
True, probably not, But I would have thought though they still would have preferred to have two drivers at the pointy end of the track, closer together than a 22-second. But look, let's not take it away from Perez. I mean, there is improvements there. He, like I said, he qualified well, which has sort of been his recent downfalls. Finished P2, got a good haul of points, kept himself there in the second place in the driver's title. And look, who knows? Maybe he'll gain confidence from this in the second half of the season. He'll start picking up some improvements. But on to Ferrari. Speaking of improvements, P3. I mean, they had a mixed weekend. I mean, you had reasonably good qualifying, P2 and P5. So obviously good qualifying from Leclerc, and could have had a pole position. Sainz, I think, I can't quite remember, but was he impeded, I think, on his qualifying lap, which caused him to get P5. Can't quite recall that. But sprint race, then they sort of showed that they weren't maybe quite at it on the wet track. They were, I think they were P4 and P5, was it? I have to just check now.
For the sprint, yeah.
Yeah. God,
P4, P5, Sainz, Leclerc.
I really should have everybody's results up. Trying to remember everybody's results from the weekend is not a good thing to do. So P4, P5. Okay, I mean, look, that's not too bad, actually, in fairness, like P4, P5, considering where Ferrari have been at. P3, podium finish. Before we get on to Sainz, what do we think from Ferrari? Oh, let's talk Ferrari as a whole. Let's talk about Leclerc. What do you think about his weekend? P2, P5 then in the sprint, and then P3 got the podium then today in the feature race.
I think Leclerc had a nice weekend considering overall. He did a good solid race. Nothing to talk about. It was a bit sad to see that even in lap one, Red Bulls without DRS just fly by both Ferraris.
Yeah.
That was a bit sad. If I was sitting in a Ferrari and see a car that doesn't need DRS just run past by me, and all it needs and nothing you can do about it. But it seems that at least they learned a few things, considering that Leclerc managed to get the pole, finish third. Tough luck for Sainz, but not a bad weekend. 50-50 for Ferrari.
Well, on Sainz then, let's just jump into that then. Obviously the DNF today. P5 quali, P4 sprint. Again, not a terrible weekend. I mean, I think, like I say, a solid weekend. Like, it was neither, blowing anyone's hair back, or it was neither terrible either. But then the race today, the incident then with Piastri. What did you make of this incident? Sainz came out after the race and said that he called it a lack of experience from Piastri, which led to the collision. Do you think it was a racing incident, or do you think someone was at fault there?
I think Piastri was in the wrong place. He shouldn't be there on the inside, so he should know better. And that incident caused not only Piastri to DNF, also Sainz to DNF. So yeah, Piastri's fault. No matter what Piastri said on the radio, that Sainz shouldn't be there, but that was his position. Hamilton was on his left. So what was Piastri doing on that inside?
Yeah, I agree with you as well. I think that's very much a kind of a scenario where someone's tried to take a corner that's not there. It's not there to take. I mean, the only space that was there for Piastri was going over the curbs and into the wall.
that move that Piastri did is what someone does when you play Xbox and you want to go to the corner just to pass everyone.
Yeah, exactly. When you're playing the F1 game on the Xbox with 0 damage on, where you could just send it into turbo and knock everybody off and then continue on. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, in real life, a driver should know better. You don't should be there at all.
Yeah, I mean, and then look, it was instantly clear it's something that happened, and the performance dropped off, and ultimately ended up pulling off to the side of the track. But yeah, it was a pity the end. I mean, they did the best they could. They stuck with Sainz. I thought they would have boxed Sainz once he got outside the top 10. I thought they would have retired the car and just saved on the components of the car. I kind of thought, you're going backwards. You're finishing at the, if you go the whole 44 laps, you're finishing at the back anyway. It was clear to see. I felt that when they came in for the first pit stop and they could assess the damage on the side, they already knew sort of from the timing how much time he was losing per lap. They should have realized we're not learning anything from this. We're not gaining anything from this. Just save on the components and, kind of retire the car. But they didn't. They persevered. Do you think, now let's just talk about Ferrari as a whole. Do you think maybe there's a bit of something happening there that they might we might start seeing a bit of improvement on their results or a bit more consistency, maybe?
It's still too soon. Today, they had everything to have a nice weekend. But that incident, that crash with Sainz, that kind of ruined their weekend. So let's see if they really learn a few things.
Yeah.
They have a full month now to think about this and get ready.
Well, going from one team sort of making some improvements to another team who we always think they're making improvements and then seem to take a step backwards. Mercedes, P4 from Lewis, P8 from George Russell in the qualifying, a sprint race P7 from Lewis, P8 from George, and then the feature race, then the main Grand Prix, P4 from Lewis and P6 from George. Like, all sounds fine, but very much a very vanilla end to the race or to the weekend for them. There was nothing exciting. There was nothing dramatic. But it just feels like there's momentum being lost. That car, even last week as well in the Hungary Grand Prix, you just feel that this car. So in Hungary, I think they didn't start bouncing back until the car was lighter on fuel, and then that car came alive and they were challenging, and then. This week, though, they just didn't seem to, like, he wasn't able to catch Leclerc, and Leclerc was, as they said afterwards, was doing fuel saving for quite considerable portion of the end of the race. Now, I don't know whether, well, Hamilton couldn't have been doing that because he went for the fastest lap, so he couldn't have been fuel saving, or if he was fuel saving, he was fuel saving just to go out for the fastest lap. So. Yeah, I don't know. We don't need to sort of stick on Mercedes too long here today because, like I said, there wasn't anything too impressive. But what, I don't know. What did you think of the race weekend in general from Mercedes?
I think it was just a normal race. Nothing impressive. Yeah. Russell was as usual, just quiet, getting points, and that's it. Hamilton, he was not good on the sprint, causing Perez DNF, and got the penalty that make him drop on the grid. And today, I think he just had that Mercedes is, like you say, it's not been consistent. So today was another day that Mercedes was not on top of their game for sure. Neither Hamilton.
And what about that penalty? And I know it was in the sprint race, but do you think that I when I was watching it now, I have to say I thought it was a bit harsh getting a 5-second penalty. I thought it was a racing incident. I didn't think there was anything to it. But did you think it was a just deserved penalty he got there for that tip on Perez?
I think.
Now forget about it knocking Perez out of the race. Just think about the incident itself rather than the aftermath of the incident.
Well, I don't see that. I could see the stewards having. If Perez managed to finish the race, then probably there was no penalty. But because Hamilton crashed into him, damaging his car, because we could see straight away that after that little tete-a-tete between Hamilton and Perez, the Red Bull dropped the pace completely, kind of disappeared.
But should that be a reason to we spoke about this actually before in previous podcasts, but I often think, and you're right, that probably does come into the decision making, but surely that shouldn't be the case, because if Hamilton had nudged into Perez and no damage happened to be done and they both continued on, but this exact same touch, the exact same sort of level of impact that we saw, and then obviously what happened. Now all of a sudden there's a 5-second penalty. Like surely the incident and the intention in the incident is what leads to the penalty and not the outcome of a car's damage. Because things can be done. Cars can get damaged for all kinds of reasons from incidences that are clearly out of control of the other drivers. So you can't necessarily issue penalties just based off the damage that's done to a car over the actual intent within the race. So if it was over aggressive driving and they felt that, okay, this was too aggressive from Hamilton, regardless of what happened to Perez's car, then it's a 5-second penalty. I get that. But if you're kind of going, yes, it was over aggressive from Hamilton, but it's okay if he didn't damage the car, but the fact that he damaged his car, then it's 5 seconds. I'm kind of like, well, that's like saying, well, he attempted to murder Perez, but he actually didn't manage to kill him, so he's not going to prison. Like, no, what?
Well, if that would mean that drivers could always try to hit other drivers, and if it's okay, and if they so
no,
what
that
you're
would be the
saying is-
penalty. That'd be the penalty then for the intent. That's what I'm saying. The penalty should be given based off the intent of what you've done, regardless of it. So even if he had hit Perez, what I'm saying is if the stewards thought that that was intent or that it was dangerous driving, then the 5-second penalty should be given, like, because they feel that that was dangerous driving or whatever. So that I get the 5-second penalty, but the damage that's done shouldn't be.
It's a difference between aggressive driving. One thing is aggressive driving where they both touch, but they both keep going, and this was not the case. And that's why I think they get the penalty. If Perez managed to finish, but there was probably no investigation. But because he DNF'd, that's it.
All right. Well, I think we'll put a pin in that. No doubt next week or on the next podcast, we'll no doubt be talking about other incidents like this because it's come up fairly frequently now. This kind of the decisions from the race stewards and stuff like that. Aston Martin. I was going to talk about Aston Martin a little bit more than I am, but I think we'll just kind of breeze through this because they're not like quali P9, Alonso P10 for Stroll, sprint race, Alonso DNF. Sort of an uncharacteristic mistake from Alonso causing that DNF in the sprint race. P11 for Stroll, P5 Alonso, P9 for Stroll. That seems to be there seems to be a consistency here. Like Alonso's definitely all season has been getting more out of that car. Stroll has always seemed to be in the shadow there and sort of towards the back of that top 10. I'm just wondering, like, do you think, let's not spend too much time on Aston Martin because I don't think there's a hell of a lot to talk about, really. But do you think Alonso and Aston Martin will be happy with the P5? Will they see it as a slight improvement over I know technically the position is a slight improvement over their last couple of races, but do you think they feel that they're making a bit of improvement on their upgrades, getting to understand them?
Yeah, I'm surprised that Alonso got P5 considering their previous results. I was thinking that Alonso would be on P11. I think they've been P7, P9, should be P11. But the fact they did P5 today, I think they are onto something. Stroll, I don't know. Stroll is a Tsunoda of the Aston Martin, basically.
Yeah,
just on the shadow. Not sure if he's going to finish on points or not.
And do you think it's sort of actually two questions here. So do you think Aston Martin will recover this car for towards the end of the season and get Alonso back into the podium positions, or do you think this is sort of their sort of 5th, 6th now for the rest of the season?
I'd like to see that Aston Martin are going to use the silly season to make the car as it was in the beginning of the season. They have half the season now to evaluate what they did in the beginning, the sort of upgrades that bring the downgrade to the car, and what they're doing now.
So you think in the summer break now they'll be able to sort of find that they'll take what they've learned from the last few races since the upgrades, they'll sort of tweak that and hopefully come back in Zandvoort or something like that as something better. That'll be interesting now to see. And then just on Stroll, and I'm mad for talking about drivers who should be axed and who shouldn't be axed, but just on Lance Stroll, no, I don't think he should be axed. I mean, I do genuinely think he's not a bad driver. I don't think he's getting the best out of that Aston Martin. So I'm just wondering, at what point do you think, like, because I mean, I know his dad when his dad kind of bought into the team, he did always come out and said, like, everyone has to earn their place here, sort of referring to the fact that his son is the driver and thought there'd be some sort of favoritism there. But do you think there will be? Do you think it will come a point where if Alonso is able to get P3 and get onto the podium consistently in that Aston Martin, and Stroll is still sort of sort of battling around the top 10 trying to get the final point, do you think eventually they might just say you have to go, even though it's his son? Or do you think he'll stick to his word, or do you think there will be some sort of favoritism and he'll be like, nah, he has to stay?
No, I think at the end of the day, Stroll might be the son's boss, but they are shareholders and people that want to get money out of Aston Martin. So doesn't matter if your son doesn't deliver, you must go. Stroll is lucky that Helmut Marko is not there to give some hints.
Oh God, he'd be gone already. yeah, that wouldn't last well. All right, well, moving on. We'll just the last team I want to touch on today is McLaren, who seem to have I think we were talking about it before. That rocket ship is desperately ran out of fuel this weekend. Not this weekend, should I say? This today for the feature race. I mean, they qualified Piastri P6, Lando P7, which was okay. Not where they've been in the last couple of races, but it was okay. Sprint though, Piastri gets P2, phenomenal in the wet. We knew it was going to suit them. Lando P6, not sort of where he would like to have been. Then the feature race, obviously Piastri had the incident with Sainz. We'll call it. I think we're saying it. We reckon it was Piastri should have bailed out of that corner. I think it got chalked up to a racing incident. Sainz believes it was Piastri as well. But Lando gets P7, sorry, then. And so the weekend or not the weekend, but the main race, it sort of showed that McLaren, so basically, okay, let me kind of regroup on my thoughts here. So McLaren went in, they were running high downforce, and that suited them because we had sort of a wet start to the weekend. So everything was looking sort of cushy. We were kind of like, okay, the McLarens are still performing. Then it hit a dry track on Sunday, and they were absolutely appalling. But that being said, I mean, I think on the second stint, Norris came in for hard tires, and he was running for a long time down. I think he was like P16, P17, something like that. But finally managed to battle his way up to P7 and finish P7. I mean, what did you make of the drive from Lando? I was sort of impressed that he managed to get that. I thought he was going to, once I saw him, he was struggling to catch up with Russell, I think, or struggling to keep on the back of Russell in he was in Russell in P6 and Lando in P7 at that time. I thought he's gonna start dropping back. He's gonna maybe finish 11th or 12th, but he managed to hold that P7 in that car with that high downforce on a drying track. Keeping in mind that rain was only brief. Obviously, we saw the surge in performance when the track started getting wet. But what did you make of his drive today? I thought he deserved a bit of a shout out.
Yeah, considering everything, he did a solid race, even though it was not the race that we've been expecting from McLaren's over the past few weekends.
Yeah,
where McLaren was always on top. Today was, for a moment, we are kind of seeing the McLarens from early season mixed with McLaren from last year that was fighting in the middle of the pack.
Yeah,
just for the Norris, because Piastri, he didn't pass turn one, sadly.
Well, I mean, I don't think it would have mattered even he did. He would have probably still have struggled the same as Lando did. I mean, that car wasn't going to, Piastri's car wasn't magically going to perform better than Lando's car, with that high downforce on a dry track. So, but I mean, look, it might suit them now coming into Zandvoort. That's a high downforce circuit. So, it's strange, but it's a high downforce circuit, but it is a quick circuit. So, it'll be interesting to see how they work out. But it should suit them. So. You never know. We may see sort of a return to like the last kind of few results that we've seen from McLaren. But
one funny thing about McLaren is that Piastri only ran on Saturday and still got more points this weekend than Norris.
Yeah, exactly, and only in the sprint race as well. Like so, but yeah, and he ran. I know it wasn't the Grand Prix; it was a sprint race. But he's the first rookie to lead a race, I think, in 10 years or something like that. So look, I mean, you got to take your positives where you can get them, and the fact that he's probably not going to take that as a positive at the moment, considering he crashed out in turn 1. But look, you got to take what you can get. But we'll just before we wrap up the weekend, then we had sort of two sort of mentions, I suppose. Yuki Tsunoda, who's been sort of consistently pretty bad, I suppose, over the last while. But I mean, P10 and should have possibly have gotten more than P10. And then Daniel Ricciardo P16. I mean, not a great weekend for Daniel Ricciardo, but still, like it's early doors for him, or it's early days, not early doors, early days for him. So yeah, what did you make on the AlphaTauri this weekend?
Yeah, Yuki kind of slowly he started P11, and he managed to always stay around the points. So it was good to see Yuki back on the points. It's been a while since we've seen the AlphaTauri in that position. And Daniel Ricciardo, well, it's still his second drive this year. He's still learning, and this weekend was not a great weekend to get familiar with the car, the track like it is. Not the best.
No, exactly. I'm still holding out hope for Daniel Ricciardo that he's going to sort of recover, and we're going to see more of the best of Daniel Ricciardo. And then just finally, then obviously Alpine had a bit of a change at the top, axing their team principal Otmar, and all of a sudden Pierre Gasly gets P3 in the sprint race. Ocon gets P9, and they didn't do too bad. I mean, in the main Grand Prix, I mean, I think they got I think it was P8 for Ocon. I'm just have to check now where Gasly finished, and 11 for Gasly. I mean, that's the fact that all their wheels remained on the track over the finish line was certainly a damn sight better than the last couple of races they've had. So do we think Otmar getting the boot had something to do with the sudden surge of confidence?
To be fair, I don't think that there was a reason for Alpine to do that. They did have a few troubles in the past two races, but not really his fault. I mean, the DNF that they had last weekend was definitely not his fault.
I think they probably find the reason was, I mean, they were looking fairly promising that they were going to be, they're starting to make improvements, and then all of a sudden, like last year there was a bit of improvements happening, and then this year I think there was a lot of hope for this season. There was a bit of work that went into the car and their concept for the car for this year, and it hasn't gone the right direction at all. So I don't know, I'm guessing that's the responsibility has to lay at someone's feet, and it looks like it's Otmar that's taking the hit on that one.
It's McLaren's fault. They start doing better, making Alpine look bad.
Yeah, and Aston Martin doing better as well. Like, well, that's possibly a contributing factor. The fact that the likes of Aston Martin, McLaren, Mercedes, even all these teams are making improvements, and Alpine seem to be just struggling. So yeah. So that's but it was interesting. But look, let's see how it goes for Alpine. If they start having terrible results now for the second half of the season, it'll be a Matteo Binotto situation for them. Right. Well, I think that sort of covers the Belgian Grand Prix. But before we move on to our predictions game, let's just get a rundown of let's look at the official driver of the day first, and then we'll look at who we thought was driver of the day and the biggest loser of the day. So the official driver of the day went to Max Verstappen, 15.5% of the votes. Then we had Charles Leclerc, 14.8%. Yuki Tsunoda, 14.6%. Good shout. Lando Norris, 8%, and Sergio Perez on 7.3%. So, Isidro, I put it to you. Who was your driver of the day?
Yeah, I'd say Yuki. Considering everything he's been through, he deserved the P10 today.
Everything he went through, like, it was a traumatizing experience for Yuki Tsunoda.
Well, he's been under pressure since Nick got the boot and Daniel on his shadow. So
yeah, fair shout. No, I didn't even think of Yuki Tsunoda. I just saw the full result there. I saw Yuki Tsunoda, and I was like, yeah, that's not a bad shout. I gave mine to Max Verstappen, and I wouldn't normally do that, but I just think it was he was so quick, but it was sort of he was preserving his tires so well. It was effortless, and not just effortless in the sense that natural ability, but I just meant that the car was able to drive around at such pace without kind of without having to throw it around. I just thought he was in such control, and even though it took him 16, 17 laps to sort of get into the lead, even that I thought he played the patient game, and I think he. I think he deserved it. Granted, radio calls, as I said at the start of the podcast, radio calls aside, I didn't think that was needed. But yeah, I'd have given it to Max Verstappen. We don't know who Scotty would have given it to because he's not here. But our loser of the day. Okay, who's your biggest loser of the day?
Oscar Piastri.
Piastri. Yeah, that's
after what he did in sprint, I was expecting better from him today.
Yeah,
I don't want to say that was a rookie move, but yeah,
it was a rookie move. Well, I'm split, but the fact that you went with Piastri and McLaren, I'll go with my other option. I've Carlos Sainz, and the reason I have Carlos Sainz there is because I think their car was more suited to this race. So I think even had they not knocked each other out and they both got cleanly around that corner, I don't think Piastri would have possibly, would have outscored the Ferraris. So I think Sainz had more of an opportunity, I think, to get better results out of that race than Piastri did. And I think, like we said at the start, I would lean towards the incident being Piastri's fault, and so all that included, I think Sainz kind of was hard done by. So yeah, I put him down as my biggest loser of the day.
Even though it was not his fault.
Oh yeah, no, even though it wasn't his fault, he lost out. Not. I mean, we have to clarify when we say biggest loser of the day, we're not calling someone that they're an actual loser. I mean, they just lost out the most in the race. All right. So that's done. That sees Belgium done for 2023, and let's get on with our predictions game. So let me just have this up and ready to go. Okay, let's breeze through these because Scotty's not here. Oh wait, hang on a second before I get too cocky. Let me I've just seen my results. Shit, I was going into this full of confidence, and then I've realized I made a mistake. Okay, so my top three, I went with Verstappen P1. Which happened. I went with Perez P2, which I didn't realize I did. And I went with Norris P3, which in hindsight now is an absolute disaster of a choice. All right, I'll let you call out Scotty's and your own.
Scotty went with Verstappen first.
Yeah, 1 point there.
Norris second.
Jesus.
And Perez third.
All right, that's good for me. And what did you go with yourself?
I went with Verstappen first, Perez second, and Hamilton third.
Oh, I'd say you were crying that he was like 2.5 seconds out catching him quick. All right, that was but it's a 0.
Yeah.
This is where I got over cocky. I thought I just realized I called the wrong Ferrari.
Yeah.
So my flop was a Leclerc DNF. And I was convinced I said Sainz, but I just realized it was last week I said Sainz for a DNF. So, shit. Okay, moving on.
Well, Scotty was even more cocky with an Alpine double DNF.
Yeah, that was suicide. And you went with?
I went with Alonso outside top 10.
I mean, that could easily.
Because based on the geometric progression, 5, 7, 9, 11 was.
Yeah, easily could have happened. All right, my surprise, I went with Daniel Ricciardo top 10, and once again, like my Ferrari, I picked the wrong driver. Yuki Tsunoda got the top 10 instead, so that's a big goose egg for me.
Scotty went with Bottas top 10.
Oh, well, that didn't happen.
What's close? Got P12.
P12, yeah.
I went with Albon top 10.
That was
again.
That's actually, I wish we touched on them in the podcast, like in the race review. Williams, they were disappointing, weren't they, this week?
Yeah. Well, I was expecting more of them, to be fair. But I think
Completely,
the bad weather, because Belgium has a good straights, so I was expecting Williams, and Williams did well on those straights. But overall, I think the strategy with the tires messed up everything.
Yeah, I just
Because
yeah,
most of the time Albon was there in the middle of the pack, but then he pit for soft, I think, and
yeah.
that was disastrous.
Oh well, the anyway, let's not jump back into the race review. All right, so predictions for Netherlands Grand Prix Zandvoort.
Wait,
Or
what about the points?
oh,
Where we are now?
sorry, Jesus Christ, I got carried away. Bloody hell! All right, so it's a tie between me and you, Scotty. You're not here, so you lose out. You got goose egg this week, and me and Isidro share the points. So this is big now in the table, because that now means I take the lead clearly now on 7 points. Scotty on 6, but tied now for second is Isidro on 6 as well. Jesus, Scotty, if you start missing out on any more of these podcasts, you are going to be hitting rock bottom on the table of all three of us.
Yeah, I'm coming for that P2 and P1.
All right. Well, before I jump into our predictions for Netherlands, let me just double check, see if any of the fancy results have come in. I'm guessing they haven't, but let's just double check to be on the. So let me just log in here to the account, leagues, and our fantasy league. Okay, I think the points are in. Let me see. We could be lucky here for the first time. The points are in. Oh my God, I got -8 because I had Carlos Sainz. Okay. All right. Okay. So Team Trek. I know we're jumping around here, and this is in the middle of our predictions game, but this never happens. Usually the fantasy points aren't calculated till the middle of the night. So Team Trek still at number 1. Stop Inventing has dropped down to number 3. Who was at number 1 for most of the start of the season. JCB All Stars, which is this guy, is P6. We Plow Shit, which is my wife, is P8. Then let me see. Zedro, Zedro's Goats is P18, and Scotty, Lando, and Norris is P21. So, all right. Well, you guys need to pick up the pace a little bit there.
I think it's a bit too late.
Yeah. I'm guessing you're already like 100 and something points off the lead.
I'll be happy if I finish top 10.
Yeah, that's a good achievement. All right, sorry to take the detour. So let's get back on track here. So back to the predictions for Netherlands Grand Prix Zandvoort. My top 3 is probably going to be fairly predictable for the first 2. I'm going with Verstappen P1, and I'm going with Perez P2. I'm going to say that he's going to finish a good 30-40 seconds behind Verstappen, but he might get P2. And I'm going to go with a bit of gamble here, but I'm going to say that the high downforce track of Zandvoort is going to suit the McLarens, and they will be back up there, and I'm going to go Norris P3.
Solid predictions.
Scotty, we don't have his. Hang on, let me just double check.
It's a message.
Oh, we got Scotty's predictions in. Oh, if you want to call out Scotty's predictions there.
Yeah, so you want Max first, Perez
right.
second, Leclerc third place.
Perez and Leclerc third. Did he just get the results from today and just gotta go that? What the fuck? All right, okay, fair enough. That's his call. Bear in mind, Scotty, that's you're fighting not to finish last here. All right, Isidro, who are you going with for your top 3 for Netherlands?
My top 3 will be Max Verstappen,
Yeah.
Sergio Perez, and Oscar Piastri.
Perez. Oh, sweet Jesus, if I spelled
Like
Perez
you, I think McLarens will be back in the game.
Piastri. That's not a bad shout. All right, my flop. I was kind of torn, and I'll be honest, this is just kind of a shot in the dark, but I'm going with Piastri outside the top 10. And again, I just couldn't make the call on who I thought was going to kind of have a poor result. So I had to pick someone. All right, who did Scotty go with?
Scotty went with Alonso as a flop.
Outside top 10, I'm assuming.
I'm gonna assume, yeah. It doesn't say, but yeah,
Yeah,
Alonso
we'll
outside
just-
top 10.
Let's go with him.
Well,
No, he picked a position, P16.
what? Where is?
Hang on a second. Let's see. Yeah, I'm going to say that he went with Alonso outside top 10. We'll give him that.
Yeah, if it's a flop, it's outside top 10.
Yeah. All right, who are you going with for your flop?
And my flop is Gasly, DNF.
Gasly, DNF. Yeah, not a bad shout. My surprise, I'm going with both Alpines inside the top 10. Just go on.
No.
Why?
Why is that a surprise?
Well, they haven't been in the top 10 in weeks, both of them.
True. Yeah.
So I'm technically within the rules here.
Yeah, technically you're right. Although they do finish.
They both had, tell me the last race they were both inside the top 10.
Yeah, I'm now checking. Let me see if I can. Austria. No, sorry. Oh, Spain actually.
So you got to give me that. So that's what?
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4,
Yeah.
5 races ago.
Yeah. You're
Okay.
right. It's been a while.
All right. What's Scotty's surprise?
Scotty went with the Joe top 10.
That will be a surprise on that circuit and that car. And Zijo, who did you go with?
My good friend Albon top 10.
Oh, lovely. And let me just check. How many times this season so far have you picked Albon top 10? This is like me and fucking Mick Schumacher last season. You've gone. Let me just go up to the top here. Well, you went with Logan Sargent on the first race of the season inside top 10. Wow, you are ambitious at the first start of the season, weren't you, with Logan Sargent? But you went with Albon 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This is the 7th time this season you've picked Albon top 10. But yeah, I don't know. Do you know what? I was going to pick? All joking aside, I was going to pick Albon top 10 as well, but I thought the downforce might hinder them a bit, so I thought I went with. So I went with an equally ridiculous choice of both Alpines inside the top 10.
Not as ridiculous as a Williams finish on top 10.
Yeah, maybe. All right. Well, look, that wraps it up for this week and the Belgian Grand Prix. We are not back. Well, the Formula One isn't back until what's the actual date for the Netherlands Grand Prix? Let me have a quick.
28, I think.
It is 25th to the 27th weekend. So yeah, so that's what, 4 weeks away or something like that. So I don't know. I'm guessing we are going on a summer break as well. We may jump in with a podcast in 2 weeks' time, sort of making sure everybody's still alive and do a little bit of a check-in, but no guarantee, so don't hold out for that one. But if you don't hear from us, we will be back on schedule the Monday after the Netherlands Zandvoort Grand Prix without fail. So until then, we will see you then.